and today we're talking about foraging. So I'm going to share a little bit about where to get started. Come along with me and we'll learn a little bit about where to start when you want to try foraging. All right, so my first tip is observe, learn, and respect. So spend a good amount of time observing the things around you, maybe outside your house, maybe at the trail you walk, or maybe if you don't walk a trail usually, find a trail. It could even be just a city street. There's lots of things to see on the city street. You can take a small amount if you want to, grab a specimen. I've got some violets right here, but maybe I pluck one little violet and bring it home with me to kind of look over, maybe one of the leaves as well, so that I can learn a little bit about it. So then learning, finding resources. We'll talk a little bit more about resources later. So spend a lot of time learning and observing before you even think about eating anything or harvesting. And then respect. So respecting the land, respecting the whatever plant life and animal life is around, as well as knowing the laws of your local area. So observe, learn, and respect. All right, let's talk resources and tools. We'll start with resources. So first, I love books. So I'm just gonna name a few of these. So I love my Audubon Society identification books. They have a whole section in the front that's pictures, and then in the back is all the information. It'll tell you the region. So I have one for trees, mushrooms, and wildflowers. So next are just like some general foraging books. So I have this one, Sam Thayer's Field Guide to Edible Wild Plants of Eastern and Central North America. So if this is not regional to you, it might not be that great. And then I've got one that's regional to me. Wherever your region is would be a great place to get. And then I have one on ways to cook these lovely things. And then the last one I want to mention is Uigara, the Kinship of Plants and People. And this is a really great guide to how Native Americans communed with each of these plants. All right, so books are great, but there are a lot of great resources online. So maybe you find a cool website or blog, see what works for you. Finding YouTubers and maybe Instagrammers that you trust. There's a lot of great local Facebook groups where you can talk to other people who live in your area. Maybe they'll even tell you the good places to find things. So trust yourself and your tools. So the last two things we've got are our tools. I've got a magnifying glass. It's fun to look at like mosses and lichens and things. And then some sort of field knife. And maybe a basket. Find yourself a nice basket. It's not a requirement, but it is helpful. So, all right, let's see what's next. Now it's time to talk about 3 kind of rules for deciding if where you're foraging is safe. So the first is traffic, especially car traffic. Is there car traffic nearby? If it's close by, then likely that edible has been contaminated. Also, people traffic. If there's a lot of human traffic, if there's like a lot of trash around, then that might not be the best place to forage from, or at least to eat from. So pesticides, make sure that, or any sort of herbicide, any sort of aside, make sure that where you're foraging from has not been done. And then the last thing is the abundance. So a general rule is 1/3, but really don't take more than you need. If you don't know if you're actually going to eat this thing and you're just taking it home to kind of examine and maybe try out, don't take a lot. Somebody else can eat it, a person or an animal, or maybe the bees. Don't forget about the bees. Traffic, pesticides, abundance. So definitely take those into consideration when choosing a place to forage from. All right, so you've observed, learned, and respected. You've done your research, checked your resources. You feel confident about the plant that you are going to forage. You know what it looks like and smells like, and you're ready to put it in your mouth. and you've chosen hopefully a good spot that is free from traffic, pesticides, and has an abundance. Okay, so now it's time to taste your edible, to try it. The first time that you try that wild edible, always try in moderation. Just try a little bit, just in case. In a survival situation, you might need to find out if something is edible or not. So there are some steps that you can take. I'm not an expert on this, but I will just briefly brush over it. Just so that you know not to put something in your mouth until you've tested a couple other ways. So the first thing is to test on your skin and then wait. And then if you don't have a reaction, then the next thing is to put it on your lips, I believe. And then you wait a period, I think it's a few hours. And then finally, if you don't have a reaction from your lips, then you put it in your mouth, but you do not swallow it. And you spit that shit out and wait another however many hours. And then finally, if you have not had a reaction in any shape or form so far, then, and only then, it's time to chew and swallow. But again, not an expert. This is really only for a survival situation, I think. Don't do it unless you're literally in the zombie apocalypse and you're hungry, which you never know. So we'll see you in the next clip. My journey. So 4 years ago, I started observing and learning, but I still was ingrained with just fear, basically. But anyway, so I learned a lot, and so I spent that whole year just learning. I didn't eat anything. I might have taken a specimen home to look at it. I had talked to a lot of friends or other people who had foraged. So first year I just learned. Second year we did, dandelions and violets. Super easy things that I will talk more about at the end of this video, so please stick around. But anyway, so that year we did kind of that. I kept learning more things, more about mushrooms as well, and then the last 2 years have been just every year adding a few things that I try, a few things that I learn, but I'm still taking these steps for each of these things to observe them, to learn about them, how people use them. Because I don't want to bring something home if I don't know how I'm going to use it. What is really important is changing our mindset to see the world as things that we were grown and born and made to commune with, and things that we were made to consume and things that were made to consume us. And even if we don't eat them or use them, recognizing them and knowing them by name. So let's get to the next part of this video. So the last thing before we get to the actual foraging doesn't have to be for edible things. It can be for other resources. So I just wanted to share a little bit about some other things. So we've got dyeing. You can use natural materials for dyeing. Weaving. So there's lots of things, not just basket weaving. There's lots of ways to weave. There's lots of things to weave with. Jewelry making. There's a lot of people who make jewelry out of natural things. Trellises if you need structures in your garden. Sun printing. So cyanotyping is a cool thing that I'm hoping to try this year with like different leaves and flowers. You can also pound flowers. There's just so many ways to make art and resources and just beautiful things. So as long as you're respectful and mindful of where it's coming from and where it's going, see more of this, nature as a resource and also as a way to express ourselves. The last thing we're going to talk about is what wild edibles to start with. Oh my goodness. And just as a disclaimer, I live in the northeast of the United States. So I'm going to name a few things that I think will be pretty universal. Refer back to your resources, to your local guides for what's good and local for you. But anyway, it is the very beginning of spring and things are starting to come alive, and the first 4 things that I think are great to start with for foraging are dandelions, violets, wild onions / garlic, and blossoms. Okay, so first is dandelions. So dandelions, the leaves are edible, the flowers are edible, and the buds before they flower are edible. Capers, I think they call them. Just make sure that it is indeed dandelion. If you're not sure, wait for the flowers to come out. I will also mention that the root is edible, but that's kind of a more extensive foraging. So I'd start with the flowers and the leaves, and when you're ready, the roots. Our next wild edible that is so easy is violets, purple violets. I'll put some clips here so you can see some pretty violets. This is another easy one to forage. Violets have a pretty distinct shape and color. There are white and I think yellow violets. Seems kind of controversial. I might just stick with the actual purple violets. Number 3 is alium. I'm just gonna call it alium because sometimes it's wild garlic, sometimes it's wild onion. I've got some right here I'm gonna pull up. Just a little sprig of, and I've got some other clips. Oh, it smells so good. We have here, which is kind of a square stem. It's hollow and it smells like garlic and onion. And basically what I've learned is that if it smells like onions and garlic, then it is edible. So it's probably an alium. There's also garlic mustard, which is another kind of easy one. If it's wild and it smells like garlic or onion very strongly, you know, don't trick yourself into thinking it smells like garlic if it doesn't. So, but if it smells strongly, then that is indeed an edible, and it's probably from the alium family. Fresh, cooked, I would just use it like a green onion. And the last thing is blossom. So this is specific to where you live, but where I live, magnolias are an awesome one, lilacs and cherry blossoms, and even plum blossoms, all delicious. Make sure that they were not sprayed with pesticides. Again, refer to your local resources to check in, observe, learn, respect, find places without traffic or pesticides that have an abundance. Remember that you don't have to eat what you collect. There are other ways to use these beautiful beings. My last thing to say is make sure that you are leaving no trace. Don't leave trash. Obviously, if we want to take, we need to give. So give respect. Bring something to offer if that's something that works for you, or find other ways to offer back to the earth for giving to you. So whether that's having your own garden, having a bug hotel or a bee hotel or a bird feeder, find some way to give back to the earth for all the beauty that she is giving to you, even if you aren't foraging. And I think that's all I had to say about foraging today. I hope that this gives you some insight and some excitement and maybe motivation to get out there this spring and just to start seeing what's around you. And hopefully you'll like and subscribe, and you can check me out on Instagram. I am still just learning. I'm just a beginner, but I want other people to know that it's not this huge thing to get into. It really is something that you can start today, right now, and let's go. So good luck, happy foraging, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.